Welcome everyone to another video, and today we're going to take a look at an Ultra League team that I've been using since the turn of the GBL week, I guess, with Shadow Feraligatr, Shadow Ampharos, and Galarian Weezing. I was just thinking, right, like I've not been doing a video on Ultra League or even Master League for quite a while, so I thought maybe I try to find a fun team that I can use that hopefully that can also give me positive sets, and this team did give me some positive sets in the sets that I did play with it. But because I didn't want to push my luck any further, I decided to just stop right there and just make this video for you guys. So this team features Shadow Feraligatr with Shadow Claw, Hydro Cannon, and Ice Beam, and Ampharos is our safe swap with Volt Switch, Brutal Swing, as well as Trailblaze to bait out those ground types that our closer Galarian Weezing will have a hard time dealing against. So the main weakness for this team would be a bulky poison type or a bulky ground type in the back, which otherwise Galarian Weezing will not be able to handle. So let's go to the first battle. So we tried this for a few sets, and surprisingly it gave us positive sets for the sets that we did play with it. So let's see how it goes. So going to the first battle, we have a Pangoro in the lead. So Pangoro is going to be quite an iffy matchup for us, even in the lead with Shadow Feraligatr, because if they do successfully bait once with Night Slash, then they will be able to outpace us to the subsequent close combats to take the KO. But here, as you can see, with Shadow Ampharos having a 14 charge move with Volt Switch and having cheap moves such as Brutal Swing and Trailblaze, we can confuse them off the count and take the win for the first battle. And going into the second battle, so against the Zygarde, which is very dominant in the Ultra League right now, we tried to bait on the first charge move with Hydro Cannon, because in the subsequent ones we will outpace them to an Ice Beam, which is what we want, because Ice Beam from a Shadow Feraligatr will one-shot a Zygarde. So that is what we want to do, but unfortunately they did double shield their Zygarde, and we will double shield our Shadow Feraligatr as well. And here they immediately swap into a Corviknight, and for us this is a pretty good situation that we are in, simply because the only thing that Corviknight can hit for neutral will be Payback, in which case they do have here, but this just means that we are not able to farm them down to throw against the Zygarde later, and here they will come back in with the Zygarde to farm us down. But because now there's only like no shields left, I immediately throw an Ice Beam, which is a mistake on my end, but I will immediately swap into the Galarian Weezing to throw the Overheat, in which case they should have maybe tried to throw out the Rock Tomb instead of trying to be greedy and go for the Earthquake. Maybe that would have worked better for them. However, I'm trying to now stall the clock in order for me to be able to reset the debuff with Shadow Feraligatr, and I was able to do so at the same time taking the charge move on Feraligatr. Galarian Weezing will have a good time here, even just throwing a Sludge to almost seal the deal. But you know what, why not just go for Overheat, just for the additional flex on our end. So going into the third battle, we have a Malamar in the lead, which is still quite good for us. Of course, Galarian Weezing will have a good time against it, but we will try to chip it down as much as possible and hopefully get a shield from them in the process, because some Malamar users might try to over farm for the next Pokemon that comes in. However, in this case they decided, which is the case in this situation, where they decide to over farm by a lot, and we decided to just immediately go into our Shadow Ampharos to bait out this Hippowdon, which is surprising because Hippowdon is not something that you would find generally in the Ultra League. You tend to find other ground types such as Gastrodon or even a Swampert. So here they will try to bait us out. They'll try to take us our last shield, and they manage to do so, in which case that we'll come into Galarian Weezing to farm them all the way down. And here is where I almost made a mistake with the team, because I thought that they still had a shield left. So I tried to just go for sludges and just try to get that last shield. Unfortunately, they did not have, but unfortunately for me, they did not have any shields at all, which means that even if I gone for the overheat straight away, I would have been able to win the game. But because our Feraligatr had a Hydro Cannon start in the end, and the Venusaur was already so low, we will still be able to win that game. And in the next battle, we will meet a Shadow Ampharos, and we will immediately swap into our own Shadow Ampharos for the mirror match. They decided to go throw the Brutal Swing against us, which is fine, but we will throw the Trailblaze just to ramp up the damage coming in from our Ampharos against theirs, and we will try to commit both shields against their Ampharos just to take switch advantage, because there is a lot of weaknesses that Galarian Weezing does not want to meet if there is a Shadow Ampharos in the lead. And as you can see here, they do have a Florges coming in, which is still fine for us. However, because it is not really that good for Feraligatr, but it will be very good for us against our Galarian Weezing, and we come in with that overfarm just a bit before they get to the next one. And now here is the situation. We have to land overheat against them in order to seal the win, but they also know that if they shield the first overheat, then we will need 2 overheats to take the win. And here we immediately went for the overheat, which is a mistake, and here decided to swap in their Ampharos to snipe our Ampharos. Unfortunately, that decision gave us the additional Volt Switch damage and energy for us to take a win against their Gore guys. So going into the last battle, we have a Drapion in the lead versus our Feraligatr, and here if they don't get the debuff, then we will outpace them to the next charge move that will KO them. But they decided to swap into their Goddess support, which is a very good catch on their end. Unfortunately, we will have our Ampharos at the back to farm them, just overfarm and get the boost so that the Volt Switch will do extremely a lot of damage towards the Drapion, which is what we want, and to hopefully take a shield or get them very low. Whichever one is still good, because now in this case our Galarian Weezing will also be quite will be managed. Our Galarian Weezing will be able to manage that sliver of health that they do have, and in this case to KO their Mandibuzz, which is the last Pokemon, which we are okay with, because at this point in time Mandibuzz will not be able to do anything versus our Galarian Weezing. So there was a visual bug right there, which showed that Erase Ace did more than 50% to our Galarian Weezing, which is not the case, because that was a visual glitch because we were trying to swap out immediately afterwards. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Sometimes visual bugs do happen, and you just have to play around it. And in this case, they will concede the game. So yeah, this is a fun team that you can use. I personally use this team because I do not have the other Metamons such as Zygarde or even a XL Gastrodon or Covenant or even Grumpig for that matter. So yeah, let me know if you want to try to use this team. If you do, how did it go for you? And with that, that is the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one.